Hey guys, Enter the Stars, and we're starting a little bit late this morning. I wanted to give you guys a chance to sleep in a little bit. It's Saturday, Sabbath for some, and today's discussion is going to center around the first missing children to be put on milk cartons. Now the question is, why milk cartons? We're going to basically examine some of the spiritual aspects to why this might be the case, because one of you found the very first dairy on which they put the missing children, on the milk cartons. Let's pull this up here. This is the dairy out of Iowa. It's called AE Dairy, and it stands for Anderson Erickson. Now, this dairy was founded in 1930, so I decided to dig into this a little bit further, and I found some pretty interesting aspects to all this that I'm going to share with you guys today. Now, before we get into this, what are the ancient roots of milk and what it actually meant spiritually? Well, the Old Testament talks about milk, and it mentions 3 different times that the ancient Israelites were not supposed to boil a kid, which is the child of a goat, in its mother's milk. So what is this about? Well, obviously the blood and the milk would turn pink, wouldn't it? And there's probably some spiritual reason as to why God commanded them not to do this. Like maybe it was a pagan practice. And that brings us to Lupercalia, in which this ancient pagan practice, which obviously happened long after the New Testament, but this was probably a throwback to an earlier practice that was done by the contemporaries of the Israelites in ancient times. And it was carried forward by the ancient Romans during the festival of Lupercalia. And this is what they did. They actually sacrificed a goat and or a dog. They would then, it says here, their foreheads were anointed with blood from the sacrificial knife, then wiped clean with wool soaked in milk, after which they were expected to laugh. Now you can imagine that the resulting mixture probably turned pink as well, just like the color of a crenodrome. So obviously this was a pagan practice, and this was probably mockery of the order that God gave the ancient Israelites not to mix the kid with his own blood. So, interesting, right? Now, many of you notice that the word milk sounds a lot like the word Molech. And in fact, in past decodes that we've done, we actually found the etymology of the word Molech and found that there was a definitive connection to milk. In fact, there are different spellings of the name Molech, but in the ancient Hebrew, the vowels are missing. There are no vowels in ancient Hebrew writing. So Molech basically became MLK or MLCH, which phonetically sounds like milk. So what's this really all about? Well, we have more confirmation in A Clockwork Orange, the movie. And it says Moloch on the wall. And the actors are sitting there on couches drinking milk. So there is a connection between Molech and milk. Who is Molech? Well, Molech is the name behind child sacrifice, isn't he? Now, we all remember the Got Milk campaigns. And this is Heidi Klum, married to Seal, or was married to Seal. I think they got a divorce. And she is one of the only actresses to pose more than once for the Got Milk campaigns. Now, we decoded her a long time ago because she was a little bit cringy. But one thing we noticed was her name spelled backwards. I'm going to go in the chat here and see who gets this first. Jody says, Milcom, yes. Now, it's very important to break all this stuff down because this is spiritual sorcery. What is Heidi Klum's name backwards, or her last name? All right, let this catch up. Good morning, Cutson, Belzy. Milk, says Rebecca Wilson. But it's like mulk. There you go, Maggie got it. There you go. So, obviously, there's something to that. She's one of the only actresses to pose multiple times for the Got Milk campaigns. So, obviously, there's a reason why. Probably because her name is Milk backwards. Strange times we're living in, you guys. So, what does all this have to do with missing children and milk? What's the connection here? Well, what happens in a dairy when a mother gives birth to her calf? The calf goes missing. It's orphaned away from the mother pretty much immediately with these large-scale dairies. Now, I don't know if AE Dairy does this to their calves, but I'm going to share something interesting with you. Here, AE Dairy, the first dairy to show missing children on milk cartons. This was 1984. And it was following the disappearance of two Iowa boys, paper boys, Johnny Gosh and Eugene Martin. Now, later, Eaton Patz was put on the milk carton. He was kind of the poster boy, but it actually started with Johnny Gosh and Eugene Martin. Now, these two boys, one of them was being stalked. Polaroids were being taken of him before he was ever abducted, according to his mother. And those Polaroids were then traded on the black market to the highest bidder, and then they went and grabbed him. Now, here's something interesting. AE Dairy received a multi-million-dollar loan under the provisions of the CARES Act economic stimulus bill. Now, I don't know what that means, but it's weird that Wikipedia would put this in their article, isn't it? Now, why do they take the calf away from the mother? Well, because the mother is producing colostrum and will continue to do so as long as that calf is next to her. In other words, she will not continue to produce milk, or she won't start to produce milk until the calf is removed. And here's where things get creepy. Because there are two cow sculptures out in front of AE Dairy. They're Guernsey cows, as you can see here. But one of the cows, the original cow, the mother cow, was put there by itself for 11 years after 1966, when the mother was put in first. 11 years, 1966. That's blind 11 upside down, isn't it? Not to mention, the cow that they added was the calf, reuniting the calf with its mother. Are you kidding me? Now, I'm not sure what all this means, but it is interesting that we just talked about orphaned calves, didn't we? Now, let's get into this montage that I put together. And you can see for yourself what is possibly going on here. 14-foot tall cow named Annie. Orphan Annie? That was the name of the mother cow. And watch this. Oh, I was going to show you the cow first. Sorry, guys. This is actually a pre-edited video that I'm playing for you right now that I did yesterday. So here is the mother and the calf. Again, the mother was placed first, 1966. 11 years later, the calf was placed next to her. Now, this practice of removing the calf from the mother is one of the most disputed topics, controversies behind the dairy industry. It's very unethical, according to a lot of people and their personal feelings about, how dairy milk is produced and what should be allowed and what shouldn't. This issue is actually tantamount to how chickens are treated and, all of this stuff that came out about what was going on behind the scenes in some of these slaughterhouses and stuff. So removing the mother from the calf was actually frowned upon. Let's keep playing this here. I got some clips from the actual dairy. Watch this.
Strives to be an innovator in the dairy industry by introducing new products and utilizing the latest technological advancements whenever possible. However, they haven't forgotten the traditions over the years. Every spring, over 30,000 tulips imported from Holland bloom for the enjoyment of the community.
So 30,000 tulips every year are planted in front of this dairy. Now this is a little bit weird to me, because tulips represent something, don't they? Flowers are children. They're the new fruit of the womb. They're the new part of the plant that then will grow up and bear seeds and start the whole cycle over again. In other words, flowers are the visual representation of children, the new generation of the plant.
The tulips are just one of AE's traditions because they're a sign of spring and freshness. Another tradition is Annie, the very large fiberglass cow that has stood watch over AE's front lawn since 1966.
Since 1966. Now understand too that this dairy doing this is kind of crazy, because Iowa is actually at the center and forefront of traffic. It's been a problem for decades. It's a corridor. It's actually considered a traffic corridor. As you can see here, it's widespread in Iowa. So let's keep watching here.
This famous glass cow that has stood watch over AE's front lawn since 1966. This famous East Side Des Moines landmark was born when AE founder Ivar Eriksson decided it was important for his company to portray a clean, wholesome image. Eric, her calf, was added 11 years later. Portray a clean, wholesome image. Eric, her calf, was added 11 years later.
So Annie and Eric. Now here are some of the stories that talk about the separation of cow and calf having long-term effects on the social behavior. You can imagine it may even somehow taint the milk. Now again, I'm not claiming that AE does this. I want to be clear here, because I don't know if they do or not. Their dairy is actually separate from where they pump the milk out. They pump the milk out at these farms, and then it's trucked with a refrigerator truck to the dairy, which is in Des Moines. Let's keep watching here. Now, to me, the spiritual significance of all this is pretty much undeniable. Calves being orphaned, and then children being put on milk cartons because they're orphaned from their parents. I think that's about it. There's like one more segment back here.
AE takes great measure to ensure their products emulate their tagline, quality you can taste. To do this, AE holds weekly taste tests, and the first to put photos of missing kids on milk cartons. Consumers trust AE quality and think of them as the dairy experts in the communities that they serve.
So that was about it. That's about all I found regarding this dairy and why these missing children were put on the front of this. So I wanted to do a quick study for you guys on that. And we actually have another show scheduled for tomorrow. We're going to actually be digging into a TV show called Homeland. And this is from 2014. The episode is called Trilon and Perisphere, as you can see on your screen here. Now, what's this about? Well, this entire TV series from 2014 is about basically terrorism programming, continuing the narrative that there are very bad people who are very, very poor, but still somehow have the ability to hurt America. And it's basically the CIA, and they're going after these cells and all this stuff. So that's what the series is about. But I was blown away by this particular episode because it contains injections and it contains dark baptisms, dead pools. There's actually several baldness mentions in it as well. Now, many of you are asking, what does the perisphere and trilon really actually mean? Well, as you'll see tomorrow, it's about the needle and the cure, or the needle cure, that causes the perisphere, which is bald. And I think that's the symbolism. The needle causes the baldness. And I'm going to show you a couple studies tomorrow that actually show that the needle does cause the baldness. So we'll get into all that tomorrow, and we'll have a full show for you guys then. Let's go back into the chat, hang out with you guys just for a little bit. Again, I didn't plan on this being a very long show because it's Saturday. I just wanted to get you guys caught up on this because this is interesting. It's good to keep some continuity with these concepts, because if we don't stay on it, we can forget the chain of concepts, right? So that's why I kind of do these shows back to back. That's why we're here every day, pretty much, because it's really easy to forget the stuff leading up to some of this stuff. So let's go into the chat here. I know a lot of you guys don't drink milk, but understand that there's a lot of biblical precedent for milk. Land of milk and honey. There's many verses in the Old Testament where the ancient Israelites drank milk. Okay, so we're allowed to drink milk. Now the question is, how is that milk produced? That is the question. A lot of people do not agree with pasteurization, and until recently, I was doing a little research on this. You know, milk didn't used to be pasteurized. They would put it in bottles, and all this started in England, interestingly enough. And the milkman would come around, and there were always jokes about the milkman because sometimes children were born and they looked like the milkman. So there's this running joke that the milkman is fathering all these children. Now, I don't know how a milkman would have time to do that because they're on a pretty tight schedule. They got to get this milk out before it goes bad. They got to be picking up bottles. I mean, when would they ever even have time to do that, right? But it's funny nonetheless because it's kind of a running joke, isn't it? So the Bible, there is biblical precedent, meaning all you got to do is open up the Old Testament and you type in, you can go right on here in an online Bible, type in the word milk, and there's many verses. There's probably 100 verses of people drinking milk and God talking about how great it is to drink milk. So again, now we're dealing with how it's produced, and that I could see someone objecting to. Obviously, we just talked about some of those issues. The mother being separated from her calf, what that could do to the milk on a molecular level, the stress hormones inside of it, that kind of thing. I totally get that. But I just talked to a guy the other day, as I shared on yesterday's show, that actually does not separate the calf from the mother, and they farm the milk organically. So that would be the kind of milk that you would want to drink if you are a milk drinker. You have to ask yourself, why is the New World Order agenda to make you stop drinking milk? That's the question you should be asking, because they're moving away from that with almond milk and the different milk substitutes. That's their agenda. And also the pasteurization process, which kills a lot of the benefits of the milk. So that's another question that you should be asking yourself. So, is unpasteurized milk really good for you? Yes, it probably is, according to the Bible. But pasteurizing it, taking the calf away, and using milk substitutes that maybe we're not supposed to be drinking because they add a bunch of estrogen for men is probably maybe not the way to go. But it's up to you. You guys have to individually pray about, what it is your personal preference is. It's not a salvation issue, I don't think. So as Christians, we have to use our brains and decide what we're going to do. But I will tell you, milk is mentioned throughout the Old Testament. If you want to do a true study and have an open mind, then you can go into the Bible and start your search there. Now, what else is going on here? Those are good questions. My son and I have kind of switched over to almond milk because he's been programmed by the media from birth to basically, this is what they're telling the children these days, okay? Do not harvest animals. So they're all afraid to eat animal protein, okay? They're afraid to drink milk. So what's that going to do to our children over the long term when they've been programmed to not do these things? And where's this agenda coming from? It's not coming from God. God's not the one pushing these agendas. So you got to outthink these people. The stuff that they're telling us not to do and they're frowning upon is probably the stuff we should be doing. Because remember, they call good evil and evil good. So the formula milk shortage is spiritual. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's happening right now too, isn't it? Do not drink almond milk, says Tom. Loaded with sugar. All right. Brave New World mentioned this. Oh, interesting. They want us on cockroach milk. No real amounts of almonds in almond milk, says Kathy. All right. So that's about all I had on milk. It's been a while since we did a full study on milk. There's a lot more to it. Maybe what I'll do is I'll put the milk playlist that I have anytime I've talked about it over the last 10 years in the pinned comment if you guys want additional information. But there's a lot of stuff about milk that you should know when it comes to the spiritual aspects of this. All right, you guys. I love each and every one of you. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Take care and be safe.